Welcome back to Anti-Social Studies. Now remember that the main issues for the first two presidents were getting money, thanks Hamilton, and staying out of England and France's centuries-old rivalry. But with Napoleon out Napoleoning all over Europe, the young United States was finally left alone for a bit to do some deep introspection and figure out what kind of country it wanted to be. Who am I? You're a farmer, said President Jefferson. The first two presidents had basically been Federalists, although George transcended political parties. He tended to side with the Federalist argument. But now Jefferson was in charge, and he had a different idea. It should be noted really quickly that Jefferson's election to office was often known as the Revolution of 1800, because it's the first time that we have a peaceful transfer of power between John Adams, who was a Federalist, and Thomas Jefferson, who was part of the new Democratic Republican Party. Yes, there was a little bit of chaos and confusion with John Adams appointing a lot of midnight judges to try to stack the courts with Federalists and Jefferson not allowing them to go through. But for the most part, the fact that Adams left peacefully and Jefferson, his political enemy, walked in and took over control was a sign to us and a lot of the world that our democracy was maybe here to stay for a while. His philosophy would come to be known as Jeffersonian democracy. He saw the US as a large agrarian nation with a small national government that mostly stayed out of the lives of its citizens, whom would be mostly small farmers. In Jefferson's vision, all white men were to be politically equal. Now, it's easy and important to highlight just how many people that left out, like, hey ladies, and enslaved African Americans and Native Americans and Hispanic and Latinx people, who according to the 1790 census already numbered 20,000 in the United States, but it's also important to point out that this idea of total political equality for all white men, regardless of wealth, was actually pretty progressive for the time. During his presidency, Jefferson pushed for states to eliminate property requirements for voting, and he mobilized individuals outside of the traditional elite to become government officials. As president, Jefferson acted on his vision of a large agrarian nation by buying Louisiana from Napoleon, who needed the money to not buy winter coats for his soldiers as they marched toward Russia, I guess. Remember that by Louisiana, we mean the whole Louisiana territory, from New Orleans to Montana, and from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains. Not knowing whether he had just bought a gold mine or a money pit, spoiler, it was literally a gold mine, he sent off Lewis and Clark to explore and report back whether it had been a good deal. Again, it was an amazing deal. A few other things that happened during Jefferson's presidency. He founded a national military university, mostly to create an officer engineering corps that could help build the new nation. And this became the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, founded in 1802. The slave trade was abolished, although that didn't do anything for the millions of enslaved people already here. And the 12th Amendment was passed so that the president and the vice president were elected together, because it had been super awkward having your former opponent become your VP. And Jefferson was anxious to be able to choose his vice president because his first vice president literally murdered Alexander Hamilton. So, a quick ode to Aaron Burr. Oh, Leslie Odom Jr. Aaron Burr. You hated that you were never in the rooms where it happened. First, Jefferson drops you from the 1804 ticket so you run for governor. But then Hamilton spoke out against you during your election, so you dueled him, as you do. But you accidentally murdered one of our founding fathers, so you had to go west. When you got there, you apparently tried to rally Appalachia to secede from the United States and create a new Western empire? Or some reports said that you wanted to raise a force to conquer Mexico. Whatever your goal, you recruited men, stocked weapons, and built boats. And Jefferson was like, okay, I guess I can't ignore this guy. This guy being my former vice president. You were arrested in New Orleans, put on trial for treason, and Jefferson and other founding fathers refused to speak on your behalf. Although you were acquitted, you resigned in disgrace and lived out the rest of your life on Staten Island, having to watch politics go by without you for another 30 years. Before I move on, I have to mention that the most interesting foreign issue that we had to deal with in our early years as a country was pirates. Yeah, actual pirates. So our merchant ships had always been protected before, because remember, we were a colony of the most powerful empire on earth. This is one of those examples of things you don't really think about when you rebel against the mother country. Like, leave us alone, but also, can you still guard our ships, please? Thanks. Now that we were independent, our ships were alone in the open waters and pirates descended, especially in the Mediterranean and Atlantic waters around North Africa. Because of this, Washington had requested that Congress establish a standing navy to protect merchant ships, which Adams fulfilled, but Jefferson took it a step further and actually went to war. Weeks before he took office, Tripoli began attacking merchant ships and demanding tribute or ransom. Jefferson ordered the new U.S. Navy into the Mediterranean Sea, beginning the Barbary Wars. Our Navy broke up the alliance between Tripoli, Tunis, and Algiers and bombarded Tripoli, which is where that line in the Marines' hymn comes from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. We'll get to the Montezuma part in a few episodes. Jefferson, like all early presidents, did still have to deal with the tension between Britain and France. Both sides had resumed stopping all of our ships coming across the Atlantic, and he got so fed up that he embargoed both of them. Jefferson was kind of like the mom that yelled, "I swear I'll turn this car around if you don't stop it." But then Britain and France called his bluff and kept taking our ships, and he was like, dang it, I actually can't turn this car around. I really need to get to the store. Jefferson's embargo backfired and hurt the US because, now we couldn't trade with either Britain or France, so that wasn't great. Although we tried our best, the US just couldn't stay neutral and get the benefits of trading with both sides. This tension would escalate under our fourth president, James Madison. Now, he did a lot of things as president, I'm sure, but honestly, we kind of have to get moving, so I'm just going to focus on the war that broke out in 1812. You'll never guess what we named it. To be continued. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and join patreon.com/antisocialstudies.